This program was made possible in part by a grant from the Alaska Center for Excellence in Journalism. And viewers like you, Gnalchish, Ha'a, thank you.
I wake up in the middle of the night and I hear the wind blowing when it's not supposed to be blowing, or I hear the rain pounding off the side of the house. It is a little bit scary that people don't understand the nature of that hazard. 14 feet deep, doing 57 miles an hour across Egan Drive, carrying the hotel. That's a 300-year event. Juneau is leftover remnants from glaciers gouging out fjords. So it's very, very vertical, straight up and down, right on the water. We're just a mile away from the ice fields in most all directions, so we have some unique weather. We see a lot of rain here at sea level just because of how warm the ocean is and how much it keeps the temperatures really normalized, I would say. But when we do get cold weather systems, we can see huge snows at elevations where we see about a 4-degree average temperature change per 1,000 feet. I think 3 degrees more for the national average, but here right on the ocean, we tend to see a little more dramatic changes in temperature. So when it's 40 degrees here in town, it's definitely snowing at the top of the mountain.
You can live downtown where half the year it's rather pleasant. Sometimes it seems a bit rainier. But in the wintertime, you should be prepared for hurricane force winds from time to time. Electricity outages, so I hope you have a wood stove or you know how to chop wood and make fires. And don't build too close to the mountain or you might find yourself under quite a bit of snow at a certain point.
Oh my God.
You know, we have lots of different areas of the community that people think about avalanches in Thunder Mountain, for example, but the Thunder Mountain avalanches don't get back to the houses in that area. The big concern with the downtown avalanche paths is that they come right into the community. They have a lot of houses in those zones. The Barren Path, for example, has over 30 houses on the fringes of that avalanche zone. We have over 62 houses, a hotel, and the boat harbor, all located in high hazard avalanche zones.
So my first experience was the one that, this was the Behrends Avalanche, and just seeing a telephone pole snapped in half. That's the first time I think I was conscious of the power of avalanche. I would say it's my first-hand encounter with it. And the amazing thing, nobody injured or killed.
It is quite fantastic way to wake up at 5:10 in the morning with snow and glass in your face and a screeching wind, smothering with snow all over the place. Jerry went all around the bed and did not cut his feet, which was a miracle. This is probably after some of the damaged parts were pulled off of there. My Aunt Bonnie and Uncle Jerry lived here in 1948 and left in 1968. And it was during their time here that a freak avalanche occurred on the highlands, or above the highlands, that damaged their house. So they have a personal avalanche story to tell. And my aunt tells it rather well in a letter that she sent to my parents in 1962. She says, We really have always thought we were quite safe from snow slides at our end of the street. We still feel that way, as the slides always deflect about 500 yards above the house and head to the south instead of the north. We hadn't thought about the cyclonic winds when conditions are just right, and that's what happened. The snow didn't hit their house, it was the wind that was snow driven that hit their house. We have slides all winter from the mountains behind us, so haven't worried about them. We feel this was just a freakish wind. So they bought their house knowing that there was a snow field above them. You look at the bank transaction records and there's a pile of them. I don't know why she kept that, but there's no indication of a threat from avalanche. Today we know that the entire Highlands area is under threat. You're interviewing a guy who has a family history of snow avalanches as well as a professional history of urban planning that involves regulating avalanche-prone areas. Whether it's flood hazard or avalanche hazard or other hazards, those were not usually accounted for 100 years ago when land was being subdivided, roads being built, neighborhoods being created. So a lot of Juneau was built well over 100 years ago without thinking about any of these things. The design had to do with convenience of construction and transportation and getting things by water and all of that.
Anyone who's been through a full 4-season cycle here in Juneau can see why this was a good spot. And of course, this is now kind of interesting for the Settler Society. This is now prime real estate out here. I have 3 names. My English name is Sorrel Goodwin. My Tlingit name is Yashkanda Etz, and my Hebrew name is Moshe Ben Sar. I am Yachte Hit from the Big Dipper House, Akwan, the Big Dipper House. I am currently at what used to be our mother village site here in what is now known as Auk Bay. The city of Juneau proper, of course, is downtown because of extractive economies. The legacy is still here. And for us, the legacy, of course, is that we don't live in a lot of the places that we used to live.
Alaska's capital, Juneau, with a population of 10,000, is reached only by sea or air. It boasts the most moderate climate in the state, in the 60s during the summer, the 30s in the winter.
The outcome of settler colonialism here in Juneau was not very pleasant for our people. We were subjected to a very slow form of ethnic cleansing from this part of Juneau.
For gold, tons of it, had been uncovered in the Klondike.
As soon as the canneries started moving in, what they would do is they would claim the head of a creek or a river, and then they would start claiming land on either side of that initial claim, and it would keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If you were to see what they were doing and how they were going about it over there in that part of town, cutting down all the trees and then just building in an area that very frequently in the wintertime is underneath several avalanche chutes. It gets hurricane force winds. We now call them the Kaku winds. And then eventually building a mine downtown, right smack dab in the middle of this area that did have all of these pre-existing natural hazards. I think we were a bit perplexed at the time. to see that that was going to become the permanent year-round home for most of the residents of Juneau. It can get quite unpleasant there in the wintertime, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can very easily meet your demise in a variety of ways.
You know, we look at avalanches on a 300-year cycle, and those houses were built in the 1950s and 1960s. The 300-year perspective is hard for people to fathom when they've only seen 20 years of history. Oh, that's never happened while I've been here, and I've lived in this house since 1967. You know, and it's like, okay, but it took the roof off your neighbor's house. So they've never seen avalanches of historic proportions, and should they occur, those houses probably won't be there anymore. And there's a weakler right there. Okay, so we just said minor, more major, more major. So we'll mark them. We saw 4 to 6 foot avalanches all around the region. We saw avalanches as deep as 10 feet deep. So if any one of those avalanches would have occurred in the urban environments, we would have had catastrophic potential. We did have one avalanche in the White subdivision that was only a foot deep, but it was wall to wall with enough snow in the track that it came within 100 feet of homes. So we did have some tremendous potential this year, but we're really fortunate that all the big avalanches did not happen in places where we have our most infrastructure. All this snow right here is all avalanche debris. So this was the day of the Behrends Avenue path slide, and that tree it broke off is over 50 years old. So this shows you were in the nature of 50-year avalanches on that day. Well, we really worry about everything on the Mount Juneau face, from the White subdivision through the Behrends Neighborhood, and as you turn around the corner up Evergreen Ave and headed up the Flume Trail all the way into Perseverance Basin. We see a lot of avalanches back Perseverance Basin in the wintertime, and people need to recognize those are all hazard zones. You know, we find that the homes in the avalanche zone don't really sell for a lot different prices than homes outside the avalanche zone. We have mudslide zones, we have flood hazards. Juneau has a lot of houses located in hazard zones all over the community. So it's really unique in that avalanche zones are just one of those many hazards.
Community planning in the wrong areas, or in areas that are historically bad places to start planning a community and erecting a community. I mean, you can point that out all over town. If you drive a couple miles, you'll come to Mendenhall River. What's going on with Mendenhall River right now? It's eroding like crazy. At a certain point, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen as that river continues to erode and everyone there has to either risk falling into the river or having to relocate all of those structures. I've never seen anything like it.
In the 12 years I've been in Juneau, I've seen some of the biggest snow years, and I've seen some of the warmest, driest winters we've had. So it's really a wild card to know what you're going to get from year to year, but we're definitely seeing more extreme weather. I'm sure that climate change has some effect of it as well. As we see more extremes in our weather, bigger storms, we're definitely going to see bigger avalanches. Global warming is not global warming, it's climate change, and due to that, we're just going to have extremes of all kinds.
You see these changes happening, and of course, Alaska, I just read the other day, is warming faster than most other places just because of where we are located. So in a lot of ways, Alaska is going to continue to be the canary in the mine.
We saw mudslides in all kinds of areas. Haines had one huge mudslide that took out several homes. Juneau actually had 5 separate mudslides that took out 5 separate homes. But we were fortunate in that we didn't lose anybody, so we didn't make the national news nearly as much as Haines.
Haines is a coastal town just 100 miles north of Juneau in the Upperland Canal. In December, part of the mountainside just south of downtown slid into the sea. 2 people died when dirt, trees, rocks, and debris swept away everything in the slide's path. The slides were triggered by more than 10 inches of rain in 2 days, what meteorologists call a 200 to 500 year storm. Climate change is making these storms and the conditions for deadly landslides more frequent.
Southeast Alaska, the mountains are young. We have a thin soil with lots of trees on very, very steep hillsides that easily peel off with enough rain. And when we start to see storms that deliver 3+ inches of rain in 24 hours, we really worry about that kind of stuff.
Well, the Behrends Slide Zone is right above us, and literally on the other side of my neighbors is the zone.
My name is Catherine Sayer. I was born and raised here. My great-great-great-grandfather is Richard T. Harris, who was one of the founders of Juneau with Joe Juneau.
No, and I'll tell you why we bought this house. You can walk inside, the dogs are downstairs. I will tell, when you walk into my living room, this is why I bought the house.
I just remember avalanches coming down through Basin Road and up over the top and causing whiteouts downtown, because I grew up on Star Hill, so I remember a big one there when I was young because my grandparents lived up there. The Behrends Avenue one I am aware of because I live on Behrends Avenue, and I think everybody who lived here very long at all knows the stories about it.
It needed a lot of work. When we first moved in here, you could literally feel the wind. Yeah, when we bought this, there were trees out there, but not anymore.
There was only 12 houses on the market in our price range. It was a very tight market at the time, and 3 of those 12 houses were on this street on Behrends Avenue, so I had a 1 in 4 chance of buying a house on this street. The fear of an avalanche didn't really cross my mind. I know that the last one that happened was around 64, 65. My parents had friends who actually lived in this house when that avalanche happened. They had pretty minimal damage. They had a couple of broken windows from the wind on the far side of the house, and I felt that that was a pretty minimal risk to take to have a house to live in. And so we really just went, you know what, this is the best of what we've got, and so we're buying it.
So yeah, now room by room, we've worked our way through the house, and yeah, and I love it, but I'm not, you know, I'm not do or die over it.
Well, literally.
Juneau's urban avalanche forecast was for extreme danger on Saturday. That's a 5 on a scale that goes to 5. The city's emergency manager, Tom Matisse, said it was the first time he'd ever forecasted an extreme avalanche condition for Juneau. It was also the first time since 2008 that the city recommended that people in the Behrends Avenue neighborhood near downtown evacuate their homes.
I was really happy to see when we called for evacuations earlier this year. I went around from house to house and I knocked on everybody's doors and I asked people if they were aware of the dangers, if they knew about the evacuation requests. A great number of people in those areas had already packed up and left.
Tom Matisse went around door to door. I don't remember, I think it was February or March, He was very concerned that we might have a big avalanche come down. We pulled our RV out of storage and bundled up our dogs, and we took our RV, went down to Centennial Hall parking lot where they had set up the Red Cross.
The Behrends Avenue avalanche path runs down Mount Juneau on the side facing Gastineau Channel near Juneau Douglas High School. It's obvious where the path is, especially in summer when you can see a distinct lack of trees.
I think people were very understanding of the dangers because they knew when they bought and moved into those areas what they were getting into. But obviously everybody's got to make educated decisions.
In 2011, the city of Juneau contracted Swiss researchers to assess the risk to the Behrends neighborhood. The report said a major avalanche could run all the way from the top of Mount Juneau to the Gastineau Channel, with enough force to destroy wood frame houses in its path. The city has toyed with the idea of a home buyout program.
We had meetings with residents when I first started, and we talked about the hazards. We talked about the avalanche program. We told them that we were kicking off the avalanche program and wanted to hear from them and them to tell us how we could better communicate the hazard. We've talked to them a little bit about the buyouts. We had some people raise their hand that said they would be interested in supporting the concept of a buyout, obviously if they didn't have to give away money to do so.
Some people on Behrends think the studies overestimate the risk. One accused Matisse of fear-mongering. While municipalities see buyouts as a tool for prevention, people see them as a tool for recovery. That is, most homeowners don't want to leave a perfectly good home in a dangerous place, but they are more likely to consider leaving a damaged home. Matisse says one way to get the city and residents to consider a buyout might be after an avalanche causes damage in the neighborhood.
Because as soon as you get the insurance company involved because you damaged your house, that actually could be used as the cost share. So we could get some FEMA money to come in and buy that property, use that insurance money instead of government money to be that local cost share, make that homeowner whole, move them out of that resident, and turn that into open park space for perpetuity.
But while the city won't add people to the area, it hasn't invested in a plan to reduce the number of people who live there yet. Their only path out of harm's way is to sell their homes and pass the risk to someone else.
If they were to come and say, hey, we want to buy out your house, would you take it?
If they offered us fair market value, yes. I'm kind of over every few years having this discussion with the city bringing up hazard zones, and then the fight begins about buying out, don't buying out. You have people going, we need to get everybody out of there, let's just buy them out. And then you have people who say, well, they chose to live there so they can suck it up and live there. But it's Juneau, and like I said, when we moved back here, there were 12 houses on the market and 3 of them were in here. It's not like we had a big choice. I think developing here is a challenge. I think that there's a lot of land that needs to be developed, can be developed. Something needs to be done to make it more affordable, because right now nothing is affordable, and the houses that keep being built are not in an affordable range.
You're not going to find much out here for less than $500,000. Just for a fairly basic house out here in this part of town. This is prime real estate. Yeah, I would love to live out here, but I just can't afford it, and most of the indigenous people and families that I know really can't afford it either.
From a natural hazard standpoint, Juneau is a pretty lucky place. We don't have hurricanes or tornadoes, lightning once every 10 years. So I think we need to keep a little perspective, but snow avalanches and mass wasting, that dirt avalanche, if you like, are problems here from time to time, and if you don't recognize it, you may build something that's vulnerable. And then there's the question of should you build anything at all in the path of one of these things?
Me. Oh, stop! 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 Stop your car! There's a rock slide.
Literally 30 seconds from getting killed. Let me think about that.
The hard part is when you haven't had avalanches that come into those areas for 20, 30 years, people forget, and the hazard still exists. Alaska is a unique place. We allow people to do a lot of different things, and we want people to take personal responsibility for their own actions. We don't close trails when the avalanche danger gets high, but we provide an avalanche warning service so that people can have better tools to make better decisions and know when dangers are heightened. It's interesting that the nature of them change all the time.
Yeah, what an unpredictable job you have.
Yeah, we wake up and stick our nose outside and look into the wind.
Okay. And it did not rain, really.
This program was made possible in part by a grant from the Alaska Center for Excellence in Journalism. And viewers like you. Thank you.